You can gently open your eyes. Tonight's class is on the Samadhanaga Sutta, which is a sutta on the 5 factors of concentration, meaning it's a sutta on jhana meditation. And jhana meditation, as the Buddha taught, and as he taught, it's the only meditation taught by the Buddha. And he taught it for this single method to deepen concentration. I'm not going to comment much on this as I read through it, because you'll see the conclusion of the sutta is basically Siddhartha's comment on what he just said, and it's a little bit unique in that aspect. So, on one occasion, the Buddha was at Savatthi at Jita's Grove, Anatha Pandika's monastery. He addressed those gathered. Friends, I will teach you 5-factored noble concentration. Listen and pay close attention. I think every one of you has been on a few classes on jhana meditation. So the references here should be clear to you. If you don't understand it, please unmute yourself and just ask me to explain. I don't want to leave you confused about this, but I don't think you'll need much commentary. The Buddha continues. And what is 5-factor noble concentration? A follower of the Noble Eightfold Path is quite secluded from sensuality and other unskillful mental qualities. They enter and remain in the first jhana. This is what we do. As soon as we begin our meditation practice, we take a breath and unite our mind and our body. We're entering in the first jhana. Wow, I can't believe who this is. I got to pause a moment. This is a gentleman who was on our retreat about 4 or 5 years ago. And where is he? Come on, Howard. There he is. Hello, Howard. Oh, he's not here yet. Hello, Howard. Say hello, my friend. No, all right, I'll continue. They enter and remain in the first jhana. This first jhana is experienced as rapture, born of that very seclusion. It is accompanied, and the seclusion, I said I wasn't going to comment much, the seclusion that the Buddha is talking about is both a physical seclusion and a mental seclusion, meaning we have gained control of our minds and we're secluding our minds from ongoing sensory stimulation by the mere presence of being mindful of our breath in our body. Every time we're mindful of our breath, we are interrupting the distraction of being mindful of each thought as a thought unfolds. Is that clear? I think it is. This seclusion is accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. That simply means, I said I wasn't going to comment much, that we're directing our thought to a certain advantage, meaning we're not being distracted by our thoughts. When we're caught up in our thoughts, we're directing our thoughts back to our breath. And in that first level of jhana, we're also, it's very normal to be judging or evaluating our practice. Is it working? Are we doing it right? Are we good enough for this? All of that stuff that is nonsense is to be recognized as evaluation and do nothing about it, because as you see, as you continue jhana meditation, that need for judging yourself and what you're doing simply falls away as a consequence of concentration. How am I doing without commenting much on this? The joy of seclusion permeates their entire mind and body. It is as if one poured bath powder into a brass basin. Kneading the powder in the water, sprinkling more and more powder, and forming a ball of bath powder, saturated and moisture laden. It would nevertheless not lose a drop of its own substance. This is how a follower of the Noble Eightfold Path permeates their entire mind and body from the joy born of seclusion. In other words, we're absorbing the Dhamma by simply practicing right Dhamma, practicing what the Buddha taught. And there's nothing magical about that, is it? That's simply how we learn things. Whatever it is that we want to learn, we apply ourselves to it in the way that the subject matter is meant to be learned, and we learn it, we absorb it. That's what the reference is here. It's a the metaphor may be a little bit misleading until you understand what the Buddha is talking about. I'm going to try to not interrupt this so much. Furthermore, as the stilling of directed thought and evaluation, they enter and remain in the second jhana. This second jhana is experienced as rapture and pleasure born of concentration. Rapture is a rather archaic word that has usually biblical meanings, meaning the second coming, etc., Armageddon. Rapture in the sense of the Dhamma simply means a joyful and well-focused engagement with what we're doing, in this case with the Dhamma. Rapture and pleasure born of concentration. Free of directed thought and evaluation, the joy of concentration permeates the entire mind and body, meaning we're recognizing the benefits of what we're doing. It is as if a lake with no inflow is filled with spring water welling up within and from abundant showers. This is similar to the section from the Dhammapada we studied a couple weeks ago. The cool water welling up from within the lake would permeate and fill the entire lake. This is how a follower of the Noble Eightfold Path permeates their entire mind and body from the joy born of concentration. This is the second development of the five-factor noble concentration. Furthermore, as rapture fades, there remain equanimous, mindful, alert, sensitive, and sensitive to pleasure. Sensitive to pleasure doesn't mean grasping after pleasure. Sensitive means that we are mindful of it. We have enough mindful presence to be sensitive to what's occurring. And in this case, we're sensitive to pleasure. Doesn't mean we're grasping after it. We're sensitive to when the need to grasp after pleasure arises. That's the sensitivity we're developing through jhana meditation and refined mindfulness. They enter and remain in the third jhana, and this is a description of the Buddha's description of the third jhana: equanimous and mindful, a pleasant abiding. Every one of us has had this experience during jhana meditation. We've entered the third jhana, whether we recognize it or not. And the importance of this teaching is so that we do recognize that our meditation practice is bearing fruit as the Buddha intended, with these ever deeper levels of concentration or jhana, meditative absorption. With the fading of rapture, this pleasant abiding permeates their entire mind and body. We've all had that experience of being permeated with the joy of the Dhamma while sitting in meditation. For most of us, it doesn't last for more than a few moments. That doesn't matter. That's not significant. What is significant is noticing it and understanding how we developed it within ourselves through right meditation, through jhana meditation. It is as if a pond permeated with red, white, and blue lotus, born and growing from immersion in the water. They flourish permeated with cool water from their root to their tip, never standing above the surface. They're never noticed, like a lotus. This is referring to the subtle and timeless nature of the Dhamma, never standing above the surface. This is how a follower of the Noble Eightfold Path permeates their entire mind and body from the joy born of the fading of rapture. From the fading of rapture comes a different type of joy. It's an inner poise type of joy that no longer disturbs the mind in any way. It's an authentic joy. It's the joy that we've all talked about, taking off of our cushions and bringing it into our mundane life. And many of us in the beginning aren't even aware that we've done that, except we have the experience of, in this moment, I feel calm, I feel peaceful, I feel equanimous. And we make the connection then that that's a result of my Dhamma practice. That's the type of joy that we're talking about in the third jhana. It's not something grasping after. In fact, it's not something that is, it's not something that is easily recognized unless we have this framework and know what to look for. This pleasant abiding permeates their entire mind and body. This is the third development of the five-factor noble concentration. Furthermore, with the abandoning of evaluation, they enter and remain in the fourth jhana. So the fourth jhana is simply characterized as a complete lack of judgment or placing a value judgment on something. I like this, I don't like that. I'm doing this right, I'm not doing it right. Dhamma practice is wonderful, Dhamma practice sucks. It's none of those. Dhamma practice just is, and this is what we're doing. Being pure, neither pleasure nor pain is seen. That's a description of an awakened human being, and it's also a description of the fourth jhana. So the fourth jhana, as we experience it, is an experience of an awakened human being's mind. It simply doesn't last at that point in the beginning stages. But as an awakened, fully mature human being, that describes the quality of mind. Neither being pure, neither pleasure nor pain is seen. You've heard me say repeatedly that we no longer grasp after or cling to the things we feel we need to be happy, satisfied, or safe. We simply are living within the ever-changing worldly environment without grasping after anything. And what a contradiction to the last 3 months that is, isn't it? But as Dhamma practitioners, we haven't lost our mind. We don't need things to be different. And we stay in that equanimous mind no matter what's occurring. I'm writing, this coming Saturday, we're going to have somewhat of a special class because we're going back into Frenchtown, and it's going to be on the Siddhartha Sutta, and I'm rewriting the introduction to reflect the current 3 months to the Siddhartha Sutta, and I think you'll find it useful. And then, because we're coming back again next Tuesday, we're going to have another special sutta, not in a sequence, but that fits very nicely with kind of re-emerging into the world and taking the Dhamma with us. And I'll announce that in Sunday's email, what that sutta will be. They sit permeated in mind and body with pure, bright awareness. It is as if one were sitting head to toe in a white cloth, their entire body covered. This is how a follower of the Noble Eightfold Path permeates their entire mind and body with pure, bright awareness. So that pure, bright awareness of the Dhamma, the metaphor is it's like we have covered ourselves in this beautiful white robe that permeates our understanding to the whole world. And in that way, in that pure way, we are an example to others. And it is only that way that we can be an example of others, whether we're concerned about being an example to others as far as Dhamma practitioners or simply as fully mature, fully awakened human beings. It's by being that. This is the fourth development of the five-factor noble concentration. Furthermore, the follower of the Noble Eightfold Path has refined mindfulness well established. Their mindfulness is attended to. Their mindfulness is attended to. It means that we have to attend to this mindfulness. There's something to do about it. It's not just a consequence of hoping to be mindful about everything that arises, and so I am. It's a very specific, refined mindfulness. It's the refined mindfulness that holds in mind each factor of the Eightfold Path. Their mindfulness is attended to, it's understood, and it's well permeated, it's well penetrated by wise discernment. Wise discernment. It is as if this person, when sitting, knew another as standing, or when standing, knew another as lying down. It sounds a little silly to say, but let me say it again. It is as if this person, when sitting, knew another as standing, or when standing, knew another as lying down. So too, this follower of the Noble Eightfold Path has refined mindfulness well established. The Buddha is simply saying you know what it is and you know what it isn't. A common theme of the Dhamma, the Buddhist teaching, and my teaching, what it is and what it isn't. Their mindfulness is attended to, understood, and well penetrated by wise discernment. This is the fifth development of the five-factor noble concentration. So the four factors of noble concentration are, the five factors are the four factors of jhana, or ever-deepening meditative absorption, and the fifth development of being mindfulness that is attended to, understand, and well penetrated by wise discernment. That's the fifth factor, or the fifth development of the five-factor noble concentration. The Buddha continues, when a follower of the Noble Eightfold Path has pursued and developed the five-factor noble concentration, they have mastered the six superior understandings, which is what I'm going to read now. This person thinks what they want whenever they want and does not think what is unskillful. That is the most powerful line I've ever read anywhere in all of the Dhamma. And think about that. That is what I've been grasping after and chasing my entire life. I just didn't know where to find it. In the Oh, I can't think of the name of it. The Samadhanaga Sutta, the Buddha uses just the same line. This person thinks what they want whenever they want and does not think what is unskillful. Imagine having that. Excuse me. Imagine having that quality of mind and that level of concentration that no matter what occurs in the world, no matter what may arise, no matter who might be in your face, no matter who you might come into on the, whatever it matters, whatever scenario, whatever arises, you maintain a calm and peaceful mind. You think what you want to think when you want to think it. Every thought and every response following that thought is appropriate to what's occurring. Nothing is out of place, meaning your mind is never out of place, meaning you're never out of place. All the tension that comes from not knowing who you are has now faded. And it faded because you understand who you are. And you understand who you are in relation to 3 marks of existence, taking us all the way back to our 37-week study from last summer. They think what they think whenever they want and do not think what is unskillful. What is unskillful is anything that is outside of the framework of the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. Through appropriate mindfulness, again, notice the word appropriate mindfulness, not just any old mindfulness. Through appropriate mindfulness, they understand the suffering of many from understanding their own suffering. Again, one of the most powerful lines the Buddha ever taught. From understanding our own suffering, we now understand the suffering of others. So we don't need other people to be different than they are because we understand them. And because we understand the nature of our own suffering, no one else and no worldly condition can impose suffering on us. We finally realize that all the stress and suffering that I've suffered in my life is by my own doing. It's by my own choice, by my own grasping after. What incredible freedom is in that one understanding. And once it's fully developed, you have the inner poise to know that none of that can ever touch you again. You've established and you can easily maintain wise seclusion from whatever's occurring in the world. That's how the Buddha lived the last 45 years of his life, and that's exactly what he's teaching us to do. They understand the arising and the passing away of the aggregates. The Buddha described the 5 clinging aggregates as the ongoing personal experience of suffering. Relate what I just said to this line. They understand the arising and the passing away of the aggregates. It's the same as saying they understand the arising and the passing away of self-imposed suffering. That leads directly to Saturday's Sutta too, by the way. From lack of clinging, they are spacious, free, unbounded, unimpeded. Their form has no boundaries and no self-distinction. That's a truly limitless human being, unattached to everything. This occurs to a practitioner whenever they are mindful and well concentrated. This occurs to a practitioner whenever they are mindful and well concentrated. Well, I can't read I just lost my vision. Hope it's coming back. Sorry. Their ear consciousness unbound, restrained, sounds are unfettered and unsurpassed. Meaning even a beautiful opera that we might have been listening to our whole life sounds differently from that quality of mind. This occurs to a practitioner whenever they are mindful and well concentrated. When appropriate, mindful, and well concentrated, they understand the mindfulness and concentration of others, or lack thereof. We understand very clearly when people aren't well concentrated or mindful. We see it because we're living it. We own it. They know a mind with passion as a mind with passion. We see it. It becomes obvious. And I think that every one of us has had that experience of diminishing passion in your own life and recognizing the passion that has others lose their minds. They know a mind with passion as a mind with passion. They know a mind without passion as a mind without passion. How do we know it? From noticing the distinction within ourselves and recognizing the distinction. They know a mind of aversion as a mind of aversion. They know a mind free of aversion as a mind free of aversion. They know a deluded mind as a deluded mind. They know a mind free of delusion as a mind free of delusion. They know a restricted mind as a restricted mind. They know a mind free of restriction as a mind free of restriction. They know a spacious mind as a spacious mind. They know a constricted mind as a constricted mind. They know a refined mind as a refined mind. They know an unrefined mind as an unrefined mind. Again, we simply know the difference. They know a concentrated mind as a concentrated mind. They know a distracted mind as a distracted mind. We all know that, don't we? Because we've seen it in ourselves. They know a mind released from ignorance as a mind released from ignorance. The Buddha says repeatedly in so many suttas, we know when we're doing this. We know when we've reached the culmination of the path. We know when there's no longer any ignorance left within us to provoke another moment rooted in ignorance. They know a mind clinging to ignorance as a mind clinging to ignorance. They know for themselves a well-concentrated mind supporting refined mindfulness. They know the arising and the passing away of bodies within the continuation of endless samsara. Excuse me. This is just a line. I should probably read it again if I don't spill my water before I explain it. They know the arising and the passing away of bodies within the continuation of endless samsara. It's simply a reference to impermanence. Throughout human history, generations of people have been born and die and born and die and born and die endlessly. All that describes is endless samsara. There's no value in it. There's no value in recreating the situations that can only result in ignorance. It also points to the culmination of the path of not recreating the situations that keep us stuck wandering around in ignorance or in samsara. Samsara is a euphemism for ignorance. They understand their associations to people and the circumstances of wandering in ignorance. That's a reference to associating with people that are rooted in ignorance. Not that we should never come in contact with people rooted in ignorance, but we should not create associations with people rooted in ignorance or their conclusions rooted in ignorance. And look at what's occurring in the world today. They understand their associations to people and the circumstances of wandering in ignorance. They know karma and they know rebirth. We'll talk more about that, but we understand what karma and rebirth is in the context of the Dhamma. Their eye consciousness, unbound, restrained, they see clearly the continuation of others bound to endless samsara according to their karma. They understand the suffering of others rooted in bad conduct arising from wrong views. Bad conduct arising from wrong views. That's an important line too. The Buddha is not saying they're bad people. Their views result in poor conduct or bad conduct. They understand those bound to wrong views are also bound to continued suffering. Furthermore, their eye consciousness unbound, restrained, they see clearly the arising and passing away of others, bound to endless samsara according to their karma. They understand the release of others rooted in good conduct, arising from right view. They understand those released from wrong views are also released from continued suffering. We recognize it in ourselves, so we easily recognize it in each other. It's one of the most wonderful aspects of having the seat that I have in this sangha is being able to watch all of you develop the sangha in just the way the Buddha is describing it. And to me, that just reinforces the notion of how fortunate I am to have come across this incredible teaching that actually works for everybody who engages in right effort, which is what the Buddha intended. Just a bit of commentary here just to get into the rest of this. The Buddha describes awakened right view as having a profound and penetrative understanding of suffering relating directly to Four Noble Truths, meaning knowledge with regards to stress, knowledge with regards to the origination of stress, knowledge with regards to the cessation of stress, and knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. The Buddha continues, thus, from establishing this five-factored concentration, they enter and remain in the defilements. Sorry, read it wrong. Thus, from establishing this five-factored concentration, they enter and remain free of the defilements of greed, aversion, and deluded thinking. They are mindful of their release through direct experience right here and right now. What a powerfully declarative statement. They are mindful of their release through direct experience right here and right now, in this human lifetime, right here in this moment. In fact, I would say it's not in the future, because for a wise Dhamma practitioner, that occurs when their mind is fully united in their body and they have abandoned all ignorance. And it happens to each and every one of us within, how do I say this? Within the time that they allotted to Dhamma practice, and what I'm referring to, within their own right effort. They know this for themselves due to a well-concentrated mind supporting this refined mindfulness. This is what the Buddha said, gratified those assembled were delighted in the Buddha's words. Thank you for listening to this, I think, a wonderful sutta. I hope you feel the same. One of the things I was thinking about when I typically read a sutta maybe half a dozen times before I teach it. Within a day or two of teaching, and even though I've read it many times. And so in doing so, I gain, maybe a little bit of a different point of view than I've taught before. But in this case, the 5 factors of concentration are simply the 4 levels of jhana and that 5th level of concentration, which really relates to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this simple sutta can be engaged with even simpler by understanding just that. Jhana meditation is to be experienced, and it's to be experienced by recognizing these 5 factors of concentration within our meditation practice. All right, let's go around the room and see what you have to say. I'm going to start up here with Julia and Michael. Julia, how are you? Hello, Julia.
Oh, sorry.
I gave a whole talk already.
I'm sorry. Do you remember any of it? Spontaneous talks, it's hard to remember. People ask me all the time, would you say that again? I can't.
This sutta is extremely profound. It's one of the most profound ones that for me anyway. I find it's beautiful. It's magnificent. I wrote a little summary, so I'll just read it because it's easier. The first of the 4 noble right concentration is concerned with this. Is with jhana, and then the 5th factor is discernment, which is the heightened wisdom. When we develop the qualities of the rapture, pleasure, unification of awareness, and equanimity, then we are able to practice discernment. Yeah. So through jhana meditation, by reaching the 4th level, we finally have heightened wisdom, and we're capable of having discernment.
Yep.
We become reflective and are able to understand our own suffering by discernment, and we can see how we have caused ourselves suffering by the defilements of greed, aversion, and deluded thinking. And so in that deeper level of jhana, we can actually release those 3 links of dependent origination of clinging and grasping and further becoming ignorant. When we recognize this in ourselves, of course, we experience compassion for the person that we were suffering before.
Yep.
And then we have this heightened wisdom of discernment, and we can actually see suffering in others, and we can have that understanding. And from that, of course, we can, what was that? Wait, I lost my train of thought here. Oh, so the Buddha also was saying how standing, seated, lying down, and I thought that meant that we actually kind of become a witness to our own actions in life, and we are able to check ourselves before doing anything. And so when I read that as, we're witnessing our actions, even our daily life, as sitting down, lying down, every aspect of our life, we can actually now witness, and we recognize it in ourselves. And so that's why it becomes easy to recognize in everyone else, and feel compassion for their plight. And so that's what I gathered from this sutta. It's very profound. It's beyond. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Julie. Your description of it was equally profound as the sutta itself, and that you described how wonderfully that discernment is a consequence or a development of the Dhamma. It's not something that we decide we have. The discernment is informed by right Dhamma practice. So, thank you, Michael. How are you tonight?
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. I'm not going to go on too long. Maybe just a half hour or so. No, actually, I just want, just to reiterate just a portion of what Julia had said. And I'm just going to just quote the sutta here. I think it was on the second page, but it says, through appropriate mindfulness, they understand the suffering of many from understanding their own suffering. They understand the arising and passing away of the aggregates. That's the way I kind of understood things when I was studying the aggregates, and they led me to the 3 marks of existence and the relationship between the 3 there. And I think, for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that this is, once we understand this passage here, I do believe that's where we come to know what right view actually is in relation to not only who we are, but who others are also in this world.
Yeah.
So for me, and and obviously the compassion comes in with right view. Compassion comes in towards yourself and towards others. So I'm not going to go too much further with that, but that's what I got out of that. And if that's what I can get out of that, that's a good thing.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I agree, Michael. Thank you. Ram, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. The beginning of this sutta was really a good reminder for myself as to how my meditation practice has changed over the years, actually over the decades, and that to be at ease with your own practice is an important thing. It's just so easy to misevaluate your practice as it's not good enough, it's not this enough, it is not that enough. And I spent months, years in that state of mind. And what practically happens in meditation hasn't changed much, but my evaluation of it has changed to the point where I'm not really evaluating it anymore. I'm sitting, and that is it. And meditation takes its own course. Being aware of what is going on, what's in the mind, and returning to the breath. And luckily, that's all we can do. And that's all we need to do. And the rest of the sutta has just a pile of brilliant insights that I can't even begin to touch that, because you could speak as you do for hours on the whole thing. It keeps coming up with and this is just, to me, it looks like another compilation from his point of view of all the things going on. But to hear him kind of, and he just threw this out in a teaching, and everything just ties together in this perfect thing, and it's brilliant and it's clear, and and it's just a fellow sitting there, who's done it, and telling us this is how it's done. Period.
Yeah. Thank you, Ram. And it is just that. and you made reference to actually, I don't remember exactly how you say it, but actually knowing what you were doing for the first time. And I spent many years putting on the robes of Buddhism, depending on who my teacher was at the time, or what lineage they were from, or what method. And none of it was ever personal in a real sense, in a realistic sense, in an experiential sense. It was all conceptual, even though I was doing some things that were real. The end result was something grasped after. It wasn't until I actually started practicing the Dhamma, the Buddhist Dhamma, that I felt like I was doing something for myself, for an authentic self, for a six-propertied self that actually made a difference. It was something that for the first time in my life as a practitioner, I actually began to own my practice. And it's because of the experiential nature of the Buddha's Dhamma that you have that experience. And maybe it was just me, but I couldn't have that experience until then. So, thank you, Ram. Josh, how are you tonight?
Good, John. Well, thank you for the sutta. Hello, everybody.
Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. I think in the context of a beginner, I struggle with jhana. Of course, I would love to achieve that state of mind of equanimity and peace, and but it would be clear. It seems clear that the way to get there is by the more jhana you do, the quicker you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me, where the rubber hits the road is that if I do 20 minutes in the morning, I kind of pat myself on the back, and then in the evening, I found myself in bed, and I said, "Oh God, I forgot to do it tonight." And stuff that I've read, these retreats that people will go and stay for hours at it all day long, meditating. And I guess I'm getting to the point where it seems to me that it's kind of like a big obstacle course.
When it's presented that way, but I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Those are my thoughts.
Well, thank you, Josh. First, on our retreats, we don't meditate 14 hours a day, and we don't stay in forced silence for hours and hours. They're just not like that. We meditate in each session for 30 minutes, and then we actually engage with the Dhamma, which is how the Buddha taught. And so what I would suggest to you is, if you're having difficulty with your second sit, to plan it a little earlier in the day. In other words, don't sit right before you're going to go to bed. Try to do it a couple hours earlier. And if even adding more time seems a stretch, it's okay to split your 20-minute session up into 2 10-minute sessions. There's much more benefit of 2 shorter sessions in a day than 1 longer session. There's something about meditating about every 12 hours that keeps bringing the body and mind back into the body in a more effective way. And then as far as engaging in the practice itself, to deepen the practice, yes, jhana meditation deepens jhana meditation, but as you're doing it, as you're developing the broader framework of the Eightfold Path, because it's not just jhana and it's not just the right intention. It's all 8 factors contribute to deepening concentration, and that's just what you're doing. So again, I would just ask you, have you experienced the first jhana, just a quieting of your mind as you begin your meditation session, as you take a breath?
I think I have. That when I really well, one thing I'm really aware of is when I focus on my breathing for a while, and then I'm out into outer space in the past or the future or somewhere else, and I reel myself back into my breathing. That I'm aware of those times, and sometimes I can do that more rapidly than other times. Sometimes I may be out there for 5 minutes before I come back, but
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
But Josh, that is meditation. You're not doing something wrong when you find that you have to pull your mind back into your body. That's the point of meditation. So even if you find that it's your whole meditation session, the fact that you're mindful enough and know the technique enough to simply recognize you're caught up in your thoughts and come back to your breathing. That's jhana meditation. And again, the length of distraction within jhana meditation isn't important because it will simply fall away as you continue practice within the broader framework. So you're doing it. Your experience, and I would bet that there's times when you had a feeling of calm without any other thought. Is that true?
Yes, I think that's
That's the third jhana. So you are, and the reason why I'm bringing this up right now and for everyone is the Buddha taught the 4 levels of meditative absorption, the 4 levels of jhana, for the sole purpose that we recognize them. They're not to be grasped after. They're important to recognize that our jhana meditation is actually bearing fruit as it's intended by an awakened human being. So you are doing it, Josh. You know, that again, that's the importance of our teaching and what you said tonight. So thank you. Kevin, how are you?
Doing well, John. Nice to see everybody. Don't have anything to add. Really appreciate the teaching tonight.
I'm glad you joined us. Trevor, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for the teaching. Yeah, I just had a couple brief things. Love the metaphors in this. I think the one that will probably stay with me is they flourish permeated with cool water from their root to their tip, never standing above the surface. And I
Isn't that
really
wonderful?
appreciated your elaboration on that too. So this is just such a comprehensive, complete, beautiful sutta. And my 2 takeaways, one is not to cling to the feel-good meditative states and the rapture, which is also impermanent. And I think my other takeaway is just really enjoying these suttas that talk about the freedom and equanimity that are possible for us human beings as we experience this inner evolution of consciousness. So thank you, John.
Thank you. A nice way to put it, to inner evolution. This series of, I think, a 27-week study, not local knowledge, uncommon Dhamma. It's just that this and most of the suttas in this series are never heard of unless you're an actual student of the Sutta Pitaka. And even then, you might not come across some of these. But this is just as important to me. It's just as important a teaching as, say, any teaching on jhana or even any other teaching except the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta, because of how well focused it is. This is not, and it's missed. I never heard this sutta in the 20 years in modern Buddhism, but I never heard one sutta in my first 20 years in modern. I heard sutras, but those aren't things taught by the Buddha, are they? And again, I'm not putting that down, but what I'm saying is what was withheld from me, these beautiful teachings that I feel so fortunate and to be able to teach and be a part of it. It's just remarkable. Thank you, Trevor. Good to see you. Jane, how are you tonight?
Thank you for the teaching, John. I have nothing to add tonight, but thank you very much.
I'm glad you joined us. Hello, Lorna.
Hello, John. Hello, everybody. I don't have much to say tonight, just that the Buddha talks about the 4 jhanas when we're meditating. I think I try and rest my consciousness on my breath and then leave my breath alone, meaning
that's good.
You can try and cling on to anything in your mind to verify who you are, to judge who you are and all that sort of stuff, all that I'm making me do. And you can even do it with your breath. When you're focused on your breath, you can eye make on your breath.
Yep.
And so for me, it's kind of like rest, not focus and just think about it too deeply, but rest my consciousness on my breath.
Love that.
And then leave it alone. Try
I
to
love that
just
too.
watch or just experience the body breathing without any input from me at all. And it's and that's kind of how I, when I'm more concentrated, how I approach meditation. That, as I say, just you'll cling to anything.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you for your teaching, John.
Thank you for that, Lorna. That was just brilliant. Especially that line, you just leave your breath alone, because that's what we do. We don't do anything with our breath except we're mindful of it. And you remind me of something else. That however our breath presents itself to us is our breath. In other words, if our breath at tonight's sit is shallow, it's simply shallow. If we're taking deep breaths, it's a deep breath. Long or short, it doesn't matter. The reason why I'm saying this is in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha teaches the same thing, that however your breath is presenting yourself, and his words are, if it's a short breath, breathe short. If it's a long breath, you breathe long. That has been taken as instructions for meditation, meaning that you should have forced meditation sessions where you're breathing short, and then meditation sessions where you're breathing long, and then meditate. Of course, the Buddha doesn't teach. It's just distraction, isn't it? And you nailed it, Lorna. Leave your breath alone, however we find our breath. And it's the most powerful tool we can use to deepen concentration, as long as we leave it alone. Many people that have had trauma have difficulty, at least at first, with just being mindful of their breath, because if you think about that, when something awful is about to happen to you, the first thing a human being does is they grab their breath, and so meditation can then be a reminder of that tense moment. And the only way to get through that is with short meditation sessions, but do it very gently, but very gradually, and increase time. And in that way, you're becoming familiar with a gentle breath rather than a breath that is associated with trauma. And the Buddha's Dhamma takes you in a very gentle way to get to that point. But I'm not claiming that this is a cure for all types of anxiety or not. But it works remarkably well for that. So, thank you, Lorna. Who's down here? Is that Brett? Brett, how are you?
Good, John. Thank you for your teaching, and thanks for what everybody had to say tonight. And I'll sit here in noble silence. Thank you.
I'm glad you joined us. Howard, we're up to you. I want to hear from you. I haven't seen you in years. Please come on screen. Come on, Howard. Okay. Howard, I'm glad you joined us tonight. Are you trying to connect? Okay. I'm glad you joined us, and I hope you join us again soon. It's good to see you again after these years. All right, we'll finish with metta as we always do. And like I said, our Saturday class will be in Frenchtown, and next Tuesday's class, we're going back to Frenchtown after this class. Our classes will continue live streamed as they always have. I hope you join us in Frenchtown if you feel safe, and if you don't, please join us online. Was that Howard? Howard left us. All right, we'll finish with metta as we always do. These are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. The Buddha's words on metta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will, to wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. Let me end the recording.